Hello and welcome to Book of the Mouse Club, episode 56, Thursday, April 1st, 2021.
Morning, monsieur.
Where are you off to?
The bookshop. I just finished the most wonderful story about a beanstalk and an ogre and...
That's nice. Marie! The baguettes! Hurry up!
I'm sorry, but how can one possibly pay attention to a book with no pictures in it?
My dear child, there are a great many good books in this world without pictures.
I almost bounced clear out of the book. Some bouncing, huh?
Come home or make myself known.
J. Thaddeus Turtle, Esquire. Have you never met him? You will find his story in this delightful little book, The Wind and the Willows.
I've come to return the book I borrowed.
Finished already?
Oh, I couldn't put it down. Have you got anything new?
Welcome back. I'm your host, Courtney, and I am joined, as always, by the Tony Solaroni to my sunny eclipse, my lovely co-host, Emily.
Thanks, Courtney. And hello, listeners. I am so excited to share our special interview today.
Yes, back on episode 40, we kicked off our guest reader concept, and we were joined by Brett of Notably Disney to discuss one of his favorite books, Magic Journey, My Fantastical Walt Disney Imagineering Career, by Kevin Rafferty. At the time, we discussed our love of his book, its laugh-out-loud moments, the many surprising anecdotes throughout his journey, and dreamed of getting to chat with him about it. In this episode, we get to do just that. Unfortunately, Brett wasn't able to join us to chat with Kevin, but we want to give him a huge shout out for enthusiastically discussing the book with us back on episode 40 and recommend you his show, Notably Disney, for its own in-depth interviews with authors, composers, and great Disney content.
For those who may be unfamiliar, Kevin Rafferty retires today after 40 magical years with the Walt Disney Company. Kevin's journey started as a dishwasher at Disneyland and grew to span Imagineering work across the globe. Cars Land, Test Track, the Twilight Zone Tower of Terror, Finding Nemo Submarine Voyage, and Disney Hollywood Studios' latest attraction, Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway, are just a few of his career highlights. Kevin, thank you so much for joining us here on Book of the Mouse Club. We appreciate your time and are excited to talk to you about your book, Magic Journey, My Fantastical Walt Disney Imagineering Career.
Thank you. I'm honored that you talked to me. And by the way, I heard episode 43. You guys are awesome.
Aw, thank you so much for listening.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, it just made me smile from ear to ear. I just loved that you loved it. I just felt you made me feel so good. Thank you.
It was a book that kept us company in those beginning months of this global pandemic, and we had a lot of fun escaping to some magical places with you in your book.
Well, that's good.
So to get us started, we first wanted to ask, what made you want to document and publish your experience as an Imagineer, and what did you learn about yourself as you revisited your career?
Wow, that's a great question. I guess what made me want to write the book is, this is going to sound weird, but I didn't really set out to write a book at all, as much as I realized that I hadn't really documented anything. I hadn't kept any journals or diaries or anything, and I thought, well, it was so fun. This career was so fun. Not that it wasn't a lot of work, but I really should just kind of for myself just write everything down, and just everything I remember. So everything that I put into the book was just, a withdrawal from my memory bank, so to speak. And, you can't make this stuff up, so it's all true. And so, and then that, and every time I was in a meeting at Imagineering, where some of the folks from my generation would have me tell a story to somebody from the younger generation Imagineers, and everybody would say, oh, you should write a book. You should put that into the book. And so I don't know where that book came from. I just started writing and having fun. And you guys cracked me up when I heard your podcast, and you were envisioning me sitting in front of the computer cracking myself up. Yeah, that did happen.
We absolutely laughed out loud as we were reading, but I'd love to know how writing this book was different than the show writing you've done for Walt Disney Imagineering. Did you have a similar approach? Did it feel very different?
Well, show writing is a whole different deal than writing stories from memory like that. I mean, show writing is about showmanship and theater and entertainment, and I guess the book was relatively entertaining, but show writing has to do a lot with putting yourself into the head of a character that you're writing for. So, for example, on Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway, in writing the script, I had to think like Goofy, like Mickey, like Minnie. What would their response and what would their thing be? How would they express themselves? And so I think to answer your question, the difference is when you're show writing, you're writing about another subject, a topic, like bugs, like cars, like Mickey and Minnie's world. But in writing kind of my own memoirs, it was kind of writing from my head for a change instead of somebody else's. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
So we're really excited that you listened to our podcast and you got to listen to the episode. We concluded with questions that we wanted to ask you if we ever got the chance. And now that you're here with us, we thought we would ask you those questions we had at the end of the episode. So Courtney's going to get us started off with our friend's question.
Okay.
So you heard Brett from Notably Disney joining us as our guest reader. Unfortunately, he could not join us today, but his question was regarding Disney California Adventure. He had shared that you were transparent about not quite being thrilled on your assignment to that within the Imagineering team, and he was curious why you did not feel as closely connected to the park in its conception, and I'd like to add, what did you learn from that experience?
Well, I wasn't really assigned to it. It wasn't like I, denied my assignment. I had a bunch of other work going on actually, and the team that was assembled to work on Disney California Adventure did, with what they were doing and the mission that they set off for themselves. They did a really great job with what Imagineers try to do the best they possibly can with what they're given. I guess the answer to that question is, really, I was working on so many other projects, I couldn't really work on a whole another park concept as well. I mean, there's only so much one person can do. But I guess the other, kind of the second part of the answer to that question is, I'm kind of traditional, I'm kind of old school. I kind of like the immersion of storytelling and, visual cues that keep you in the story. And the new park, California Adventure Park, was kind of a bold new offering and a bold new adventure, and they set out to do some things differently. And I guess I'm an old soul when it comes to Disney parks, and I just didn't know if I wanted to work on something that was entirely, totally differently, that was kind of out of the realm of my traditional kind of park upbringing and beliefs and stuff. And not that what they did was wrong or bad at all. It was a great team. But how it changed me is it kind of made me aware that, I can, try to work on the things that my heart and my gut tell me to work on instead of, trying to be assigned to something that I didn't necessarily have a whole lot of passion with. And so I think what changed me was being fresh eyes and coming in after the park was open and help to refresh it and to add more new adventures and experiences that the park didn't have on opening day. So I guess what I realized was it was kind of a good thing I didn't work on that park, so I could approach it with fresh eyes and bring something, make a difference and bring something new into that park to help expand it and to offer guests more kind of immersive, dimensional Disney storytelling opportunities.
That's really exciting. And an ongoing trope on our show is I have not been to Disneyland yet. Courtney has.
We're going to get you there.
It's going to happen. I'm really looking forward to seeing Cars Land, which was a big part of your book, talking about how you got to put your passion for cars and develop a project you were working on before into that collaboration with Pixar.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was just an epic project. And, the collaboration with Pixar kind of came later on, as I explained in the book. I didn't even know when I started that whole land idea themed around cars that Pixar was even working on a movie about cars entitled Cars. I mean, who would have ever guessed that in a million years? And so, basically we had a whole new land before we even knew that Pixar was working on a movie about cars laid out, and we kind of had a main street called Cruise Street, which was about the size of Main Street at Disneyland, and the time period was, like 1955 to 1965, when cars became more of a means of personal expression and freedom than a means of transportation, and the music was great, and it was really inspired by the California car culture, a theme to the California park. And so, it was a joy ultimately getting to work with Pixar on that. As I mentioned in the book, my colleague Robert Coulter and I flew up to Pixar once we heard that they were working on a movie about cars, with the funny hope that maybe something Pixar was working on in their new movie we could use for our new land. And then, like they said, the rest is history. But part of the many joys of my career was working on so many projects with the team at Pixar, because, a lot of the good people at Pixar are really Imagineers in their hearts, and they love the parks, and it was such a joy to work with them, and especially on the Cars Land project, because they were passionate about it and cared about it and loved it just as much as we did.
That's really exciting. And from what I've heard, you can really see that come through in the land. So the question I had from the end of our podcast was, you've had the opportunity to work on both original attractions like Cars Land and also redesign attractions within your career. How do you feel about the future Imagineers someday redesigning some of your attractions?
Well, that's already happened with Twilight Zone Tower of Terror.
Oh, true, in California.
Yeah, in California. So that's already happened. And in fact, it makes me feel my age. I'm thinking, wow, if everybody's, changing some of the things that I've worked on early in my career, that's making me feel old, But to answer your question, I am absolutely fine with down the road people changing, my colleagues, my future colleagues, changing attractions and projects that I worked on, because that Walt started that in the 50s. Between 1955 and 1959, think about all the changes that came into Disneyland. And that was with the hope, his desire to entertain audiences, in a better way, with new storytelling devices and technologies and new stories to tell. That's really the bottom line, is if there's a new story to tell that's better than an experience, that's better than what's there, by all means, I'm more than happy with a change if it's for the better and it entertains guests in a better way. I as you mentioned, I've actually gone in and have changed some other attraction experiences. One of the first that I did was The Many Adventures of Winnie the Pooh at the Magic Kingdom in Florida, which, as you know, was Mr. Toad's Wild Ride.
Yes.
And so it was kind of daunting to try to come up with an idea for an attraction that would both be timeless and would be, loved by our guests in that park. And I think it holds up even today. It's very timeless. The characters are great. The music, of course, is wonderful. And so the long-winded way to answer your question is, I'm all for it. If it makes the attraction experience better, if it makes the location better, then I'm all for it.
Absolutely. And I think, it's exciting to see the changes that come to the park. But what I was wondering was, there are some places that remain special. Emily and I are both former Disney College Program participants, and we each have areas of the park with sentimental value. So you've worked on attractions all around the world. You started your career at several different places within Disneyland back at the beginning. So I wanted to know if there's an area of the park that you feel most at home, whether that's a land, attraction, or restaurant.
Well, that's a great question. And, I think about all the attractions that I've worked on over the years and the lands. And, like you may think that my answer would be Cars Land, and that could be it, but the bottom line answer to that question is, I think my happy place in all the Disney parks around the world, the place I feel most at home is Main Street at Disneyland. I started my career as you know, at the Plaza Inn washing dishes, and I started on Main Street. And when I was growing up as a kid, there was always a lot of excitement and anticipation as soon as we crossed under the tunnel, under the railroad track, and came upon Main Street, and it was magical and colorful, and the music was playing, and the vehicles were going up and down the street, and it was just it's just very comforting. Main Street to me is kind of like the comfort food of the parks. It always brings me back to my beginnings. I've kind of come full circle there. And then the other thing Main Street is kind of represents to me is at the end of the day, one of the stories that I mentioned in the book about, the granddaughter and her grandmother, at the end of the day, it's a place to kind of unwind and talk about your fun day at Disneyland that day, and your head is filled with memories, happy memories and experiences from that day. So it's kind of like the front door and the back door. That's the place that most feels like home to me.
In the episode, I had said that was the story that you made me laugh at the beginning of your book, and then you made me cry at the end, and it was just a beautiful way to reflect for, again, both Courtney and I, having been cast members through the Disney College program. We've had those experiences with guests, and it's just such a magical time.
Yeah. Well, thank you for that, Emily. I mean, that was and that's a true story, and that moment made me realize, the power of the park, of the experience of bringing people together, and having making memories together, and that reassurance that we always talk about at the Disney parks and at Disneyland, about how whatever you have going on in your life, when you go to Disneyland, you can kind of set all that aside, and everything's going to be okay, and you have a great day with your loved ones, and that really showed me, the power of a place that could bring that out of somebody,
Absolutely. And I want to switch back to the Florida East Coast side of the park. Courtney and I have both had the opportunity to experience your most recent attraction, Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway.
Awesome.
Super fun. Had a blast. Had no idea what to expect. I refused to watch any spoilers online before I got
love that. Thank you.
But we want to know, what is your favorite scene in that attraction?
My favorite scene? Oh boy. That's like asking, who's your favorite child. Every scene has a reason, and there's fun and magic in every one. I'd have to say probably my favorite scene, if I had to pick one, is the picnic scene at the end, because it's kind of the happily ever after end of the story. It's where Mickey and Minnie have been trying to get on this picnic, get to their picnic all day, and of course they had a little diversion along the way, and the music is happy, and the setting is romantic, and Mickey-shaped fireworks are going off in the sky, and it's just beautiful, and they're reprising, the original theme song to the attraction, and it just makes you happy. And the other thing about that scene I like is Goofy comes back. Of course he doesn't even know anything has happened, and he opens the back door to his locomotive, and he starts snapping his finger and doing jazz hands and getting into the music, and it just wraps up a really fun attraction experience. And so I'd have to say it'd be the picnic scene, the finale.
Yeah, it really does wrap it up in such a nice way, like a little happily ever after almost.
I was going to say, it's like the kiss goodnight at the end of a day.
That's a great way of putting it. That's exactly right. It's a little kiss goodbye, and that's a great way to put it.
Well, and as we wrap up here, we have just two more questions for you.
Okay.
A key figure in your story that stood out to us is Marty Sklar. We kicked off our podcast reading his autobiography. So I'd love to know what it was like for you reflecting on your relationship with him as a leader.
Well, I consider myself very, very fortunate to have been at Imagineering during Marty's time, when Marty was, our fearless leader. And obviously I love Marty dearly. I was scared of him, as I mentioned in the beginning of my book. I was scared to death because Marty and John Hench were in charge of the entire Epcot, development and design experience, and he was bigger than life, and he worked directly with Walt, and it's kind of interesting. It's like a good movie story where over the years, you kind of warm up and soften up and get to know the other person and have fun with them. And Marty and I had a really, really great relationship, as you could tell by some of the things that I wrote in the book and the notes we passed, to each other, and just the fun thing. In fact, it was really funny today. I was thinking about just little Marty things that happened. One time we had a presentation at Disneyland, the both of us, and we had our own cars. And as we left, I thought, I'm going to go across the street to McDonald's and grab an ice cream cone on the way home. And so I left. I went out to Harbor Boulevard, and who's directly in front of me but Marty? And Marty's in his car, and he pulls into McDonald's, and he's right in front of me, and he goes up to the order window, and I see this ice cream cone being handed out the window to him. And I thought, man, this is awesome. He had great instincts. He was a great showman. I think he was a great leader for many reasons, but mostly because he was one of us. I mean, he was a show writer. He helped to design the attractions at the 64 World's Fair. He kind of worked his way up from the bottom. He paid his dues. And he was just a lot of fun because like I said, he always used to say, you can't make fun unless you're having fun yourself. And boy, we sure did. So I'm really glad that I was there during, those years, over 30 years with Marty. And you really get to know somebody very, very well that way. Marty was like family.
Thank you so much for sharing more about your relationship with him. He's been a figure that Courtney and I have both really enjoyed getting to know more through reading. We've both had the opportunity to meet him to get our book signed in 2015. So that was really great to learn more about him from your perspective in your book.
Yeah, and thank you. And the other thing I just want to mention about him is he dearly loved the park guests. He loved the guests and respected the guests. And, he was the first to tell you that the park guests is who we do all this for. And he never took that for granted, and he always tried to deliver on that entertainment experience for the park guests.
So to wrap up our conversation with you, our final question we want to ask is, what do you hope people will take away from reading your book, Magic Journey?
Wow, that's a great question. I think what I hope people take away from that is, it's okay to be scared of going into things. I had a conversation the other day. Somebody asked, were you ever scared when you went in to pitch an idea for a new ride or show or attraction? And I said, I was always terrified because it was kind of a new thing. But I guess what the book underlying illustrates is that, it was never easy. The career journey was never easy. It was always fantastic, but it was never easy. And with every obstacle that I faced, I always grew and overcame that and became a better designer, a better person. And so I hope people walk away with good things come out of hard work and not giving up and keeping your eye on your goal and keeping your dreams alive and trying to stay positive through it all. Nothing good ever came out of negativity, and I always tried to stay positive no matter what. Because I was resolved that I'm in the business of creating happiness and fun for people. And so you kind of have to be happy and fun yourself, no matter what the challenges are.
I think that's great advice, especially right now. So thank you again for joining us, Kevin. You're an Imagineer that shaped a large part of the Disney parks that we experienced growing up. So it's been a pleasure and a privilege to talk with you today. Thank you for making millions of magic memories for us and for guests, and congratulations on your retirement.
Well, thank you so much. It was a joy and a pleasure to speak with you both today, and get out there and enjoy the parks.
Wow, that was so great to hear from Kevin, even more about his journey. It is a well-deserved retirement after so many great attractions.
Absolutely, and those attractions are sure to be highlights in our next text that focuses on the individual experience of visiting the theme parks. Next up, Nikki J of Theme Park Hipster will join us once again. She recently appeared on our podcast party episode number 52 to discuss Paul Lane's book, It All Started With a Blog. This time, we'll get to dive into her own book, The Solo Theme Park Traveler's Guide, Tips and Tricks for Solo Theme Park Hopping in Florida. And here's the description from Amazon. The Solo Theme Park Traveler's Guide, Tips and Tricks for Solo Theme Park Hopping in Florida highlights how to enjoy theme park hopping alone in a simple and easy way. This lighthearted handbook will dispel the myths of going to theme parks alone and will inspire you to create your own solo theme park memories. Get lost in a few of the author's solo travel adventures that she wishes she could tell you in person person, and you will also read experiences and testimonies from other solo theme park vacationers. End quote. If you want to keep up with our own adventures, you can follow us on Instagram and Twitter at Book of the Mouse, or email us with comments or ideas to bookofthemouseclub@gmail.com. Please be sure to leave us a review on iTunes so that others may find our podcast and read and listen along with us. You can keep up with me, Courtney, on Instagram at Great Guthsby, and on Twitter at Courtney_Guth.
And you can keep up with me, Emily, on both Instagram and Twitter at the same handle at Emily_McD.
Well, Emily, I wanted to close today with a set of lyrics from Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway. I will not be singing them for you, but there is a cute song featured in the attraction with the lyrics that say, quote, "Nothing can stop us now. I don't know how. It can't be any better. We'll travel hand in hand across this wonderland. Strike up the marching band, 'cause nothing can stop us now." End quote. I'm glad that we get to travel hand in hand through this podcast together, and we once again wish Kevin the best as he journeys into the wonderland of retirement.
Congratulations, Kevin. Thanks for joining us. Ka-chow!
The Mouse Club has no affiliation with the Walt Disney Company. The views and opinions expressed by hosts and participants are theirs and theirs alone. They do not represent the organizations or companies they happen to work for.